Hello friends. About 99% of friends who watch my videos are not subscribed, and I would be very happy if you did. Also, don't forget to press the like button and leave your comments. Your interaction makes the content reach everyone and helps the channel grow. Also, let me know in the comments from which country you are watching the video. Alright folks, buckle up because what I'm about to tell you ain't no ordinary trucker's tale. This is the kind of story that'll make you think twice before hitting those long, lonely stretches of highway at night. I've been hauling freight for over 20 years. Seen just about everything the road has to offer. Good, bad, and downright bone-chilling. But what happened to me out near Blackwater Pass? That's the one that still haunts me. The one that makes my hands shake. Just thinking about it, it started like any other run. I was hauling a load of machinery from Tucson up to Spokane, nothing fancy, just another paycheck. The sun was dipping low, painting the sky in blood-red streaks, and I remember thinking how quiet it was. Too quiet. You ever get that feeling? Like the world's holding its breath, waiting for something bad to happen? Well, that's exactly how it felt. I was cruising along I-90, radio playing some old country tune when I first saw her, a woman standing on the side of the road just past mile marker 143. Now, hitchhikers ain't uncommon, but something about her made my skin crawl. She was too still, like a mannequin someone had propped up in the dirt. Long, dark hair covering, her face wearing one of those old-fashioned white dresses that looked like it hadn't been washed in years, and her arms, God, her arms, stretched out toward the road like she was begging for a ride, but her fingers were all wrong. Too long, too bony. I ain't proud to admit it, but I floored it. Something in my gut screamed at me not to stop, not even to slow down. And when I glanced in my rear view, she was gone, just vanished. No footprints in the dirt, no sign she'd ever been there at all. I told myself it was just fatigue, maybe my eyes playing tricks. But then the CB radio crackled to life. Static at first, then a voice, whisper thin, like it was coming from the bottom of a well. "You shouldn't have left me." I nearly swerved off the damn road. My heart was hammering so hard I could feel it in my teeth. I grabbed the mic, my voice shaking. "Who the hell is this?" No answer. Just that same eerie silence. I tried to shake it off, told myself it was some jerk playing games. But then the radio hissed again. "You'll see me again at the next rest stop." Now, I ain't a superstitious man, but I sure as hell wasn't stopping anywhere that night. Problem was, my rig was running low on fuel, and the next truck stop was 30 miles ahead. No choice but to push through. The road stretched on, empty and dark, the only light coming from my high beams cutting through the black. That's when I noticed the shadows moving alongside the highway. Not animals. Two. Tall, too human-shaped. They kept pace with my truck, just out of reach of the headlights, like they were waiting for me to slow down. And then I saw her again. The woman in white, standing in the middle of the road, arms outstretched, dress fluttering in a wind I couldn't feel. I slammed the brakes so hard my cargo groaned behind me. But when the smoke cleared, she was gone. Again. That's when the knocking started. 3 slow, deliberate raps on the passenger side door. I turned my head, and there she was, pressed against the glass, her face finally visible. No eyes, just black, empty holes staring right through me. Her mouth stretched into a grin too wide for any human, lips splitting at the corners like old paper. You should have stopped the first time. I don't remember how I got out of there. Next thing I knew, I was barreling down the highway at 90 miles an hour, sweat pouring down my face, that awful laughter ringing in my ears. I didn't stop until I hit the next town, and even then I slept with the lights on. But here's the thing, folks. This ain't where the story ends. Because a week later, hauling a different load on a different highway, I heard the CB crackle. Again. Same voice, same words. "You shouldn't have left me." And that's when I knew. She wasn't done with me yet. Now I know what some of you are thinking. "Buddy, you're just spinning a yarn, trying to scare us." I wish that were true. But the thing about the road is it's got a memory, and some things don't stay buried. After that first encounter, I tried to brush it off. Told myself it was just a bad dream, maybe carbon monoxide messing with my head. But then the dream started. Every night the same thing. That woman, standing at the foot of my bunk, whispering my name in that voice that didn't sound human. And every morning, I'd wake up with dirt on my boots. Dirt I sure as hell didn't remember walking through. I started avoiding I-90 altogether, taking longer routes just to steer clear of Blackwater Pass. But the highway has a way of pulling you back. One night, dispatch rerouted me due to a wreck. Up ahead. Guess where? Right back onto that cursed stretch of road. The second I saw mile marker 143, my blood turned to ice. And there she was. Same spot, same dress, same two long fingers reaching for me. Only this time she wasn't alone. Standing beside her were others. Dozens of them. Men, women, even kids, all with those same hollow eyes and rotting grins. And they were looking right at me. I gripped the wheel so tight my knuckles popped. Not, this time, I muttered, and I punched the gas, but the rig didn't move. The engine roared, the tires screamed, but we weren't going anywhere, like something had a hold of the damn truck. Then the CB screeched, that voice screaming now. You should have stopped. The passenger door flew open. Cold air rushed in, smelling like wet earth and old blood. And then I felt it. A hand, bone cold, clamping down on my wrist. I yanked free, threw the rig into gear, and somehow this time it lurched forward. The last thing I saw in the mirror was her, standing in the middle of the road, head tilted, too far to one side, mouth moving like she was laughing. But the worst part? When I finally pulled over to check my rig, there was a single muddy handprint on the passenger seat, and tucked into the seatbelt was a Polaroid, yellowed, decades old. It showed a truck just like mine, flipped over in a ditch, the driver's face blurred out, except for the eyes. Black. Empty. Just like hers. I ain't ashamed to say I quit hauling for a while after that. Took a job at a local garage, tried to convince myself it was over, but the road don't let go that easy. A month later I got a call from an old buddy, Jake. Said he was short-handed on a cross-country run, good pay, easy load. I almost said no. But bills don't pay themselves, and a man's gotta eat. Biggest mistake of my life. We were somewhere in Nebraska when the radio cut out. No static, no music, just dead air. Then soft at first, a familiar whisper. You came back. Jake frowned. The hell was that? I didn't answer. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely grip the wheel. Because outside, in the flicker of the headlights, I saw them, shadows moving between the trees, getting closer. Then the brakes failed. The rig picked up speed, Jake cussing as he fought the wheel. What the hell's happening? I didn't have to answer. She did. The CB erupted, that voice screaming, "You can't run forever!" And then, impact. Woke up 3 days later in a hospital. Jake didn't make it. Cops said it was a mechanical failure, blamed it on poor maintenance, but I know the truth, she's still out there, waiting. And next time, I might not walk away. I should have quit for good after Nebraska. Any sane man would have hung up his keys and never looked back. But, like I said, the road's got a way of pulling you in. Like a riptide dragging you out to dark water. And sometimes the things waiting in that darkness don't let go. I was back on the highway within 2 months. Bills piled up, and the only thing I know how to do is drive. But this time, I took precautions. Crosses taped to the dash, a silver, pendant my grandma swore kept spirits away. Even a .38 revolver tucked under the seat. Not that bullets ever stopped what was after me. The first few runs were quiet, too quiet, like the calm before a storm. Then, somewhere outside Flagstaff, the nightmares came back. This time, they weren't just dreams. I'd wake up in the cab, my hands caked in dirt, the taste of grave soil thick in my mouth. One morning, I found scratches on the inside of the passenger door, deep grooves like something had been trying to claw its way in. The final straw was the voice on the CB, not the woman this time, a man, guttural, wet like his throat was full of mud. She's hungry, he rasped, and she's coming for dessert. I nearly drove the rig into a ditch trying to rip the radio out. But even with the wires torn loose, the whispers didn't stop. They never did. By the time I hit Kansas, I was seeing her everywhere. A flash of white in the rear view, a pale face peering from the tree line. Once I swear I saw her sitting in a diner booth sipping coffee like she belonged there. When I blinked, she was gone. But the waitress gave me a strange look and asked, "Who were you talking to just now?" I didn't answer. Couldn't. Because the voice that had come out of my mouth wasn't mine. It was hers. The truck stop outside Tulsa was where things got real bad. I was grabbing a shower, steam thick in the air, when the water turned ice cold, then red. Not rust. Blood. I stumbled back, slipping, and that's when the mirrors fogged up. All except one spot, where a single word was scrawled in the condensation. Soon, I ran out half-dressed, earning stares from the lot lizards and mechanics. Didn't care. Because as I passed the payphone near the exit, it started ringing. No one else reacted. I picked it up. A child's voice, giggling, whispered, "She's under your truck." I didn't look. I just ran. The next week, I started losing time. Whole hours gone, like someone had snipped them out of my life. I'd blink and suddenly be 50 miles down the road with no memory of driving there. My logbook had entries I didn't write, notes in a spidery hand that wasn't mine. Almost time. She's closer. You'll look pretty in white. The last one made me vomit. I tried holy water, salt lines across the cab doors. Even had a preacher bless the rig. None of it worked. If anything, it made her angrier. The nightmares got worse. Now, when I woke up, my mouth tasted like pennies and rot. One morning, I found a lock of long, dark hair tangled in the gear shift. It wasn't mine. The worst was the night I heard singing. A lullaby, soft and sweet, drifting from the woods near a rest stop. Against my better judgment, I followed it. Big mistake. Deep in the trees, I found a clearing, and in the center, swaying gently, was the woman in white. Only now her dress was stained red, and her hollow eyes wept black tears. "Join us," she whispered, reaching for me. Behind her, shadows moved. Dozens of them. Truckers, hitchhikers, lost souls, all with the same empty eyes. I ran, but not fast enough. Something grabbed my ankle. I kicked free, sprinting back to the rig, her laughter chasing me the whole way. After that, I stopped sleeping. Started carrying a flask of whiskey just to steady my hands. The hallucinations got worse. Sometimes I'd see her in the road, standing dead center, forcing me to swerve. Other times she'd be in the bunk behind me, her breath cold on my neck. The final straw? The GPS. One night, it rerouted me onto a road that wasn't on any map. A narrow, crumbling stretch of asphalt that led to a dead end, and a rusted-out truck just like mine. Inside was a skeleton still gripping the wheel, and around its neck, a silver pendant, just like mine. I don't drive at night anymore. Hell, I barely leave the house. But she's still here. The whispers follow me. The nightmares. Sometimes I wake up with dirt under my nails and no memory of where I've been. Worst of all, the CB in my garage crackles to life on its own now. Same voice, same words, you can't hide forever. Last week, I found a Polaroid on my doorstep. No postmark, no note, just a photo of my rig parked on the shoulder of I-90 and in the driver's seat. Me, eyes black, smiling. I tried burning the photo. The flames turned blue, and the smoke smelled like her, old roses and grave dirt. Now, my reflection isn't right. Sometimes it moves without me, sometimes it waves. The knocking started last night. 3 slow raps, just like before. I didn't answer. But this morning there was a single white dress hanging in my closet. Damp, like it had been worn in the rain. So here's the thing, folks. I don't think this is my story anymore. I think it's hers, and soon, very soon, you'll be hearing it from her too. The dreams have gotten worse. Now when I close my eyes, I don't just see her. I see the others too. The ones she's taken before me. They stand in rows, their hollow eyes fixed on something in the distance, their mouths moving in unison like they're chanting something I can't quite hear. And at the front of them all is the woman in white. her grin stretching wider than any human mouth should, her fingers curling in a slow, beckoning motion. "You're almost ready," she whispers, and when I wake up, my pillow is damp with something that smells like swamp water and old blood. Last night, I woke up standing in the middle of my living room, my hands pressed against the front door like I'd been trying to hold it shut. The knocking had been so loud it rattled the hinges, and outside, I could hear something dragging itself across the porch, something heavy, something wet. I didn't sleep again after that. I just sat there gripping my revolver staring at the door until sunrise. And when the first light hit, I saw the handprints on the glass. Too big to be hers. Too twisted to be human. I tried to leave town, packed a bag, gassed up my old pickup, and hit the road before dawn. But the highway had other plans. No matter which route I took, the signs kept leading me back to the same stretch of road, Blackwater Pass. My GPS glitched, my phone lost signal, and the radio played nothing but static until her voice cut through. "You can't leave," she crooned. "You belong to the road now." I pulled over shaking, and that's when I noticed the scratches on my truck's hood, deep, jagged lines like something had been trying to claw its way inside. And beneath them, carved into the paint, was a single word: stay. I didn't. I turned the truck around and sped back home, but when I got there, the front door was already open. The house smelled like wet earth and rotting flowers. And on my kitchen table, next to a cold cup of coffee I didn't make, was a Polaroid of me, asleep in my rig, her bony fingers curled around my throat. I went to a priest. A real one, not some TV preacher. Father Mendoza took one look at me and crossed himself. "You've been marked," he said, pressing a rosary into my hand. "But it's not too late." He told me to stay away from mirrors, to burn anything she'd touched, and to never ever answer the door after dark. I thought it was working. For 3 nights, the knocking stopped. Then on the 4th, my reflection blinked before I did. I smashed the mirror. Glass cut my hands, but I didn't care, because in the shards my reflection was still moving, laughing, its mouth stretching too wide, its eyes sinking into black pits. I ran, but the laughter followed me, echoing from every surface, every shadow, and when I finally collapsed in the hallway, gasping, the house fell silent. Too silent. That's when I heard it, the soft, wet sound of something crawling up the stairs. I've started sleeping in my truck. It feels safer somehow. At least out here I can run. But last night I woke up to the engine running. I hadn't turned the key. The headlights were on, illuminating a figure standing in the middle of the road. A man in a trucker's cap, his face half rotted, his lips peeled back in a grin. He lifted a hand, pointing at me, and the CB crackled to life. "She's coming," he wheezed. "And she's bringing friends." I hit the gas. The truck lurched forward, but the man didn't move. At the last second, I swerved, and that's when I saw them. Dozens of figures lining the road, their arms outstretched, their mouths open in silent screams. The truck plowed through them, but there was no impact, no sound. Just cold, clammy hands brushing against the windows as I passed. When I looked, in the rear view the road was empty, but the smell of decay lingered for miles. I found the first note tucked into my sun visor this morning. Neat, looping handwriting I didn't recognize. "You're running out of time," it read. Beneath it, a map, my route highlighted in red, ending at a rest stop I'd never heard of. "Midnight," the note said. "Don't be late." I burned it. Watched. The flames turn green, listened to the paper scream. But an hour later, another note appeared, this time in my coffee cup. "You can't burn your way out of this." I'm not going to that rest stop. I won't give her the satisfaction. But deep down I know it doesn't matter. Because she's not asking anymore. She's telling. And when the clock strikes 12, I'll be there, whether I want to or not. The rest stop doesn't exist. At least it shouldn't. It's not on any map, not listed on any GPS. But when I pulled off the highway last night, there it was. A crumbling building with flickering neon lights. The parking lot empty except for one rig. Mine. I didn't park. I just sat there, engine idling, staring at the figure standing beneath the lone streetlight. The woman in white. Only now her dress wasn't just stained. It was dripping. She lifted a hand, beckoning, and the truck's engine roared to life on its own. I fought the wheel, but it was like the road itself was pulling me forward. The closer I got, the more figures emerged from the shadows. Truckers, hitchhikers, all the ones she'd taken before. Their eyes were black, their smiles were wrong. And when the woman stepped aside, I saw what they were gathered around. A grave, freshly dug, with my name on the stone. I woke up in my own bed, drenched in sweat, my hands caked in dirt. At first I thought it was just another nightmare. Then I saw the mud on my boots, the pine needles stuck to my jeans, and the Polaroid on my nightstand. A blurry shot of me kneeling beside that grave, shovel in hand. I don't remember digging, but I must have. Because when I checked the trunk of my car, the shovel was there. Rusted, wet, stinking of turned earth. And wrapped around the handle? A lock of dark hair. I burned it, watched the flames turn black, listened to the hiss as it melted into something thick and oily. But the smell stayed, clung to my clothes, my skin. No matter how much I scrubbed, I couldn't get it off. That's when the whispers started. Not just at night. All the time. A chorus of voices, murmuring just below my hearing, growing louder, every hour. And beneath them all her voice, clear as a bell. Almost time. I tried to leave again. Packed my things in the dead of night, didn't tell a soul. But the highway had other plans. No matter which way I turned, the signs kept changing, always pointing back to Blackwater Pass. The radio spat static, then a child's voice, giggling. "You can't leave. You're part of the family now." I pulled over, shaking, and that's when I saw them. The shadows, moving between the trees. Not just watching, waiting. And at the front of them all, the woman in white, her head tilted too far to one side, her grin splitting her face in two. I floored it. Didn't stop until the sun came up. But when I checked the rear view, her handprint was on the glass, smudged like she'd been tapping. Waiting, and in the passenger seat, a single white rose, dripping red. The nightmares are constant now. I close my eyes and I'm back at that rest stop, standing over my own grave. The woman in white is beside me, her fingers laced through mine, her breath cold on my cheek. "It's better this way," she whispers. "No more running." I wake up screaming, but the screams don't stop when I open my eyes, because sometimes they're not mine. They're coming from outside, from the woods behind my house, from the empty road, from the CB radio that hasn't worked in years. Last night I heard my own voice on it. "Help me," it begged, but I know it's too late for that, because the me on the radio, he's already dead. I've started seeing them in the daylight now. Flickers of movement at the edge of my vision, pale faces in crowded diners, shadowy figures standing too still at gas pumps. They don't speak, they just watch. And when I turn to look, they're gone. But the woman in white, she's bolder. Yesterday I saw her in the diner bathroom mirror standing behind me, her rotting hands on my shoulders. I spun around. Nothing. There. But when I looked back at the mirror, the words "tonight" were scrawled in fog. I didn't go home. I drove straight to a motel, barricaded the door, slept with the lights on. But at exactly 3:07 a.m. the phone rang. No one on the other end, just breathing, and then, so soft I almost missed it. "I'm in the room with you. I don't sleep anymore. Can't." Every time I close my eyes, I feel her fingers brushing my face, her nails scraping my skin. The hallucinations are worse now. Whispers in empty rooms, figures standing at the foot of my bed, the smell of wet earth clinging to everything. Last night I woke up to the sound of digging, right outside my window. I grabbed my gun, threw open the curtains, and saw myself knee-deep in a hole shoveling frantically. My doppelganger looked up, its eyes black, its mouth stretched in a grin. Then it vanished, but the hole remained, and at the bottom, a coffin, with my name on it. The final note appeared this morning, taped to my windshield, written in what I hope is red ink. Midnight. The rest stop. Don't keep us waiting. I'm not going, I can't, but the clock's ticking and the whispers are getting louder. It's happening. I'm losing control. This morning I woke up behind the wheel, miles from home, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles were white. The radio was playing static, and in the rearview mirror I saw her, sitting in the back seat, her hollow eyes locked on mine. "Almost time," she whispered. Then she was gone. But the smell of her, rot and roses, lingered. And in the passenger seat, a single mud-caked shovel. I'm at the rest stop now. I don't remember driving here, but the gates are open, and the graves are waiting. They're calling my name. I can see them, dozens of them, standing in the mist, their arms outstretched. The woman in white is at the front, smiling. "Welcome home," she says, and the worst part? I think I'm smiling back. I wasn't going to dig into her past. Some doors are better left closed. But after waking up with graveyard dirt under my fingernails for the 7th night in a row, I knew I had no choice. If I was going to survive, I needed to understand what she was and why she'd chosen me. The local library in Blackwater Creek was a crumbling brick building that smelled of mildew and old paper. The librarian, an elderly woman with thick glasses and a permanent frown, stiffened when I mentioned the stretch of highway near mile marker 143. "That's no place for decent folks," she muttered. But when I slid a 20 across the counter, she led me to a back room filled with yellowed newspapers and microfiche. The first article was from 1957. Beneath the headline was a grainy photo of a smiling teenager in a white dress. Her dress. Eleanor Voss, 17, had vanished while walking home from the Blackwater High School spring dance. Her date, a trucker's son named Billy Hargrove, claimed they'd argued, and he'd left her on the side of the road to cool off. By the time he came back, she was gone. The next article made my blood run cold. Eleanor had been found 3 days later, 2 miles from where Billy abandoned her. The coroner's report listed the cause of death as exposure, but the handwritten notes told a different story. Her wrists were bruised, her fingernails were torn, and her mouth. God, her mouth had been stitched shut with fishing line. Billy was the prime suspect, but without proof, the case went cold. Then, exactly 1 year later, Billy's rig was found jackknifed near mile marker 143. No blood, no body. Just his boots, neatly placed on the shoulder, filled with swamp water and black roses. The librarian leaned in, her breath smelling of peppermint and decay. "They say she still walks that stretch of road looking for rides from kind strangers. But you don't want to pick her up, son, because Eleanor don't take you home." She paused. "She takes you where she went." I tracked down Martha Cleary, Eleanor's younger sister, now a withered woman in her 70s living in a trailer park outside town. She didn't want to talk until I showed her the Polaroid of the woman in white. Martha's hands shook. "You've seen her." Over lukewarm coffee, she told me the parts the newspapers left out. Eleanor hadn't just been murdered. She'd been sacrificed. "Blackwater Pass wasn't always a highway," Martha whispered. "Back in the day, it was a hunting ground. The men in this town, they had appetites. Billy's daddy ran a trucking company, and he and his buddies liked to hitchhike hunt, pick up girls, have their fun, then leave them in the woods. Eleanor figured it out, threatened to go to the state police." Martha's eyes filled with tears. "The night she disappeared, Billy's daddy held a party at the old rest stop. They dressed her in white, like a bride, they said, laid her across the hood of a truck like a prize deer. Then She broke off, gripping her coffee cup so tight it cracked. After that, the accident started. Truckers swerving to avoid a girl in the road, only to wind up wrapped around a tree. Hitchhikers vanishing, then turning up weeks later, their mouths sewn shut like Eleanor's. And Billy," she smiled grimly. "Eleanor saved him for last." I left Martha's trailer with a splitting headache and a new certainty. Eleanor wasn't just haunting that stretch of road. She was feeding on it, and I was next on the menu. That night I dreamed of Eleanor's death. Not the sanitized version from the papers, the truth. I saw Billy's daddy, a hulking man with grease-stained hands laughing as he stitched Eleanor's lips together. "So you don't scream," he cooed. Then they laid her in a shallow grave beneath what would become mile marker 143 and poured wet concrete over her. "A bride for the road," one of them slurred, pissing on the fresh pavement. But concrete can't contain rage like Eleanor's. In the dream, I watched as her corpse twitched beneath the hardening slab. Her fingers clawed upward, nails splintering, bones breaking. And then, snap. Her hand burst through the surface. The men screamed. Eleanor didn't. Because when she rose from that grave, her mouth was no longer stitched shut. It was gone. Just a gaping black hole where her lips should have been, stretching wider, until it swallowed the first man whole. I woke up choking, my own mouth numb. When I looked in the mirror, my lips were tinged blue, like something had been sucking the life out of them. The dreams had shown me enough. I wasn't going to end up like Billy or those other poor bastards, just another name on a missing persons poster, another pair of empty boots by the roadside. If Eleanor wanted me, she'd have to work for it. I drove back to Blackwater Pass at high noon when the sun was brightest. In my glove compartment, a stolen priest stole from St. Mary's, a mason jar of dirt from Eleanor's unmarked grave, courtesy of Martha, and my granddaddy's old hunting knife, its blade dipped in silver. Superstitious? Maybe. But when you're dealing with something that shouldn't exist, you play every card you've got. The rest stop looked different in daylight, just a crumbling parking lot with 2 flickering sodium lights and a boarded-up diner. But I could still feel her watching me from the tree line. That oppressive, greasy feeling of being studied by something hungry. Got to work, salt lines around my rig's tires, the priest's stole tied around the steering wheel, Eleanor's grave dirt sprinkled on the passenger seat. Then I waited. The first sign something was wrong came at 3:33 p.m. My radio switched itself on, blaring static. Then the CB crackled. "You shouldn't have come back." The temperature dropped 20 degrees in seconds. My breath fogged the windshield as frost crept across the glass in intricate patterns, like dozens of skeletal fingers pressing from the other side. Then I saw her. Not on the road, not in the trees, in my mirror. Eleanor sat directly behind me, her rotted lips peeled back from teeth like rusted nails. Her dress, once white, was now the color of old blood, fused to her decaying body like a second skin. "You can't get rid of me," she whispered, her breath smelling of open graves and diesel fumes. That's when I slammed my fist into the rearview mirror, shattering it. Like hell I can't. What happened next wasn't pretty. Eleanor came at me in a blur of moldering fabric and grasping hands. Her touch burned like dry ice wherever she made contact. I barely got the knife up in time as she lunged across the seats, her blackened fingers clawing for my throat. The silver blade bit deep into her wrist. She screeched, a sound that made my nose bleed and the truck's windows crack. Black ichor spurted from the wound, eating through the upholstery like acid. I took my chance. Grabbed the grave dirt, stuffed it into her gaping mouth, recited the Latin prayer Martha had taught me. In terra veritas, in morte aeternum. Eleanor convulsed, her body twisting in ways no human form should. The truck rocked violently as unseen forces battered it from all sides. The passenger door flew open and she was gone, but not defeated. The CB crackled one last time. "This road is mine, and you're just passing through." Then silence. I sat there shaking for an hour before I could move again. The knife was ruined, the blade blackened and pitted. The passenger seat was shredded like something had been thrashing against restraints, and on the dashboard a single word written in frost: soon. I thought I was the only one Eleanor haunted. Then I met Dale Big Rig Hendricks at a Wyoming truck stop 2 weeks later. The man was a wreck, hollow-eyed, twitchy, nursing a coffee with hands covered in poorly bandaged cuts. When he saw my rig's Blackwater Pass parking decal, he grabbed my arm with surprising strength. "You seen her too, ain't ya?" Over lukewarm meatloaf, Dale told me his story. Picked up a hitchhiker near mile marker, 143. Pretty little thing in a white sundress, said her name was Ellie. Her feet never touched the floorboards. The smell of wet earth clung to her. His GPS kept glitching to a single coordinate: Eleanor's grave. Worst part was the singing, Dale whispered. Some old Andrew's sister's tune coming from my radio, but I don't have a radio. Then he showed me the photos on his phone. The first was blurry, just his cab at night, the passenger seat empty. But when he zoomed in, there she was. Eleanor, barely visible in the darkness, her face pressed against the inside of the windshield, like she was trying to push through the glass, her mouth stretched wide in a silent scream. The next photo made me sick. Dale, asleep in his bunk, and Eleanor crawling on top of him, her rotting hands braced on either side of his head, her hollow eye sockets staring directly at the camera. Wake up with these, Dale said, rolling up his sleeves. His arms were covered in deep, ragged scratches, the kind made by frantic fingernails, but the patterns were all wrong. They formed words. Join us. Dale disappeared that night. They found his rig idling near Blackwater Pass, the cab empty except for a pool of black sludge in the passenger footwell, his CB radio tuned to a dead Channel A, single Polaroid on the dash. The photo showed Dale standing with a group of shadowy figures by the roadside, all of them smiling, all of them missing their eyes. I should have left it alone after Dale disappeared, but something kept pulling me back, to that damn rest stop diner. Maybe it was the way Martha had clenched her jaw when I mentioned it, or how every victim's last photo showed its broken neon sign in the background. The place was called Helen's Eats, though most truckers knew it by another name, The Last Bite. Breaking in was easier than it should have been. The back door's padlock crumbled in my hands like it had been waiting decades for me to show up. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of old grease and something darker, like copper and spoiled meat. My flashlight beam caught menus from 1957 still on the counter, prices frozen in time, coffee, 10C, a jukebox covered in dust, its cord, cut booth number 4, the vinyl slashed to ribbons, dark stains pooling on the seat. That's where I found the ledger. Tucked beneath the rotting cushions was a leather-bound book filled with careful handwriting, Helen's special guest list, names, dates, and descriptions. June 14, 1957. Fresh lamb dressed in white. The boys left satisfied. Payment received. The pages stuck together toward the end. When I peeled them apart, I found dried blood preserving. Eleanor's final entry. They think this is over, but the road always collects its due. A floorboard creaked behind me. The jukebox lit up, playing I'll Never Smile Again by the Ink Spots. Scratchy, warped. And in the flickering glow I saw them. Shadows moving in the kitchen. Not rats. Hands. Dozens of them pushing through the walls like the diner was some thin membrane between worlds. Then came the whispers. Driver. Oh, driver. We've been waiting. I ran, but not before snapping a photo of the ledger. The flash captured something else in the room. A pale figure sitting at the counter, its head tilted at an impossible angle. When I looked closer at the image later, I realized two horrifying things. It was wearing Helen's name tag. Its mouth was stitched shut with fishing line. 2 nights after the diner, I saw them for the first time. The Blackwater convoy. I was pushing through a thunderstorm near the Utah border when my headlights caught the reflection of 8 pairs of taillights ahead. No problem, except my GPS showed no other vehicles. Their lights burned too red like diluted blood. They moved in perfect unison, never changing speed. Then the CB crackled to life with overlapping voices. Join us. Just like Dale. The road hungers. I dropped back, but they matched my pace. When I pulled over, so did they. 8 rigs lining the shoulder in eerie synchronization. That's when the doors opened. No drivers emerged. Just thick black smoke pouring from each cab, coalescing into humanoid shapes on the asphalt. The storm seemed to bend around them, rain turning to icy sleet as they started toward my truck. I floored it, but the convoy followed, their headlights now burning solid black. The last thing I heard before losing them in the storm was the CB whispering, We'll meet at Helen's. You ever wake up and not recognize yourself? It started small. Black strands in my beard that wouldn't wash out a rotten tooth where I'd never had cavities, mud under my nails every morning. Then came the lost time. 3 hours missing outside Amarillo. Woke up parked at a derelict gas pump. My hands gripping the wheel so tight the veins stood out like cables. The dash cam showed static for that period, except for one clear frame. Me, staring dead-eyed at the camera, mouth sewn shut with fishing. Lined the worst part? I think I did it to myself. Found the needle and line in my glove compartment along with a Polaroid I don't remember taking, me sleeping in my bunk. Eleanor crouched above me, her skeletal fingers threading the line through my lips, and written on the back in my handwriting. Almost ready. Dr. Leland Cho from Stanford University tracked me down through my DOT logs. Said he'd been studying highway manifestations for decades. Over bad truck stop coffee, he showed me his research. A map with 143 disappearances clustered near Blackwater. Pass a 1957 police report confirming Billy's father hosted parties at Helen's and audio recording from 1989 of a trucker's final moments. Oh God, she's in the garbled screaming. The concrete is moving. Leland believed Eleanor wasn't just a ghost. She was the road itself now. Certain traumas imprint on locations, he explained. The more victims she claims, the stronger her influence grows. He tapped the map. Notice the pattern? Every 50 miles, exactly where the original trucking company had depots. Then he showed me the clincher, a live satellite feed of I-90 near Blackwater Pass. At first, just empty highway. Then, the asphalt rippled, like something enormous was moving beneath the road. Leland leaned in, deadly serious. We need to salt and burn her original grave, but there's a catch. The lights flickered. The CB in his bag emitted a bone-chilling whisper. Too late, doctor. We found his rental car the next morning. Engine running, doors locked, interior covered in wet concrete. And on the passenger seat, a single prom corsage, 67 years fresh. I knew it would end on the road, not in some hospital bed, not in my bunk, but out there on that godforsaken stretch of asphalt, where Eleanor had been waiting for me since the beginning. I loaded up with everything I could scavenge. A bag of road salt blessed by a Navajo Elder Billy Hargrove's rusted pocket knife. Found, buried near Helen's. Every remaining photo Polaroid of Eleanor Gaskin filled with ethanol mixed with grave dirt. The plan was simple. Lure her out at mile marker 143, salt the grave site to weaken her. Burn the photos to sever her ties, drive like hell. Before the road swallowed me too. The sky turned the color of a fresh bruise as I parked. No birds, no crickets. Just that awful waiting silence. I drew the salt circle and lit the first photo. Eleanor Voss, I shouted into the stillness. I know what they did to you. The wind picked up instantly, howling through the trees like a chorus of lost voices. Then came the cracking sound, the asphalt splitting open like rotten fruit. She emerged from the road itself, her white dress now black with tar, her hair alive with writhing tendrils of rebar and asphalt. You don't know anything, she hissed, her voice the sound of 100 car crashes. I threw another photo into the flames. They buried you alive under this road, made you part of it. The ground trembled. The salt circle held as Eleanor screamed, a sound that shattered my windshield and made my ears bleed. I grabbed the last photo, the prom picture of young smiling Eleanor, and raised Billy's knife. But I'm not them. I stabbed the photo onto the grave dirt, pinning her memory to the earth. For one heartbeat, everything went still. Then the road erupted. Hands, dozens of them, burst through the asphalt, grabbing at my legs. The convoy materialized on the highway, their headlights blinding me. And Eleanor, she unfolded, her body stretching into something enormous and terrible, her mouth a yawning tunnel of darkness. Join us, the voices shrieked. I threw the gas can into the salt circle and lit my Zippo. The explosion sent me flying, woke up in a ditch 5 miles away. The taste of blood and gasoline in my mouth. The sky burned orange behind me. And when I limped to the crest of the hill, I saw the road was healing itself, fresh asphalt bubbling up to cover the damage, the fire dying unnaturally fast, and standing in the middle of it all, Eleanor, but different now, smaller, almost human again. She looked at me with something like sorrow, her lips no longer stitched shut. "It never ends," she whispered. "The road always hungers." Then she was gone, and I was alone. I don't drive anymore. But sometimes when the moon is full, I'll hear a familiar song on the radio, an old Ink Spots tune crackling through the static. And if I'm foolish enough to look out the window, I'll see them. 8 sets of headlights gliding silently down the highway, always together, always moving. And sometimes, if the light hits just right, I'll spot a familiar white dress leading the convoy. Still searching, still hungry, because the road never forgets.